Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Claire Stratford. I'm Events and Network Coordinator for Thames Valley AI Hub, and I would like to thank you for joining us here this evening for our event, Data Science, Where Do You Start? We have two fabulous speakers for you today. The first is Andrew Sivanesan, Data Science Specialist at NATS and President of globeAll, an employer support network for cultural minorities. Andrew has been working in data analysis roles since 2015 before upskilling as a data scientist, and has kindly agreed to join us this evening to share this journey. He will be followed by Ella Cockerell, Business Development Lead, IoT, EMEA and Vice Chair of Women at Microsoft Board at Microsoft. Ella is the driving force behind Microsoft Data Science Bootcamp for Women Returners programme, and we'll be sharing a whole load of information on resources available online to support aspiring data scientists to upskill. We are also joined by Sarah Wirtz, who leads the Thames Valley AI Hub initiative, and will be taking control of the Q&A later. There will be an opportunity after both talks to ask any questions and that you may have. Please add your questions to the chat, and Sarah will get to as many as she can. If you wish to remain anonymous, they can be emailed to Thames Valley AI Hub, tvaihub@reading.ac.uk. The email account will be monitored throughout the session. I am sure that there is no need to remind everybody, but please can we make sure that microphones are muted throughout? And finally, I need to advise you that we are recording this session today, and it will be made available on the library tab of our website shortly after the event this evening. So, without further ado, I would like to pass you over to Andrew for the first presentation this evening. Thank you, Andrew.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen with you all. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, thank you, everyone, for attending. My name is Andrew Sivanesan. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a data science specialist at NATS and also president of globeAll. NATS is multicultural employee support network, and this is my talk on my journey into data science. So over the course of this talk, I will just give you a quick introduction into my professional background, my learning goals going into my kind of transition from data analysis into data science, what I've learned so far, how I've been learning, what's next for me in terms of my learning and development, and just a quick wrap up and summary. And then I'll open the floor to a Q&A. Okay, so yeah, who am I? My background is in mathematics and economics. I did my BSc at the LSE, graduating in 2012. So yeah, I'm a data scientist without postgraduate qualifications, without an MSc, without a PhD, which is kind of uncommon in the industry. But I think the main thrust of this talk is very much, from my perspective, I don't think it's necessary to have a postgraduate qualification to be able to acquire the skills for data science. For me, it's about enthusiasm. As long as you have a quantitative background and enthusiasm for numbers, statistics, etc., and you have a willingness to learn, then I think that will serve you very well, basically, in this domain. So as Claire mentioned, I've been working data analysis roles since 2015. I've worked at Goldman Sachs. So I worked in the liquidity risk technology team, and I built a data reconciliation tool for a report that they produced on a weekly basis for the European Banking Authority. And then I joined NATS back in May 2016. So if you don't know who NATS are, they're the UK's air navigation service provider. So basically air traffic control for UK airspace, and also we sell commercial services to international airports as well around the world. But during my time at NATS, I've been an air traffic forecaster, I've been a safety analyst, and most recently, just for the last 12-15 months, I've been a data science specialist. So I've transitioned from more data analysis type roles into data science, machine learning, data engineering as well. So yeah, in terms of my journey, it's kind of started at about when I was at Goldman Sachs, really, 2015, 2016-ish. started to realize that data analysis is good, it's interesting, but the forward direction is very much towards data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. I felt like it was a good time for me to start transitioning and upskilling myself to prepare myself for future roles in that domain, really. And going into that, I needed to have a plan of action, because there's different ways to get different approaches you can take, and I've met different people who've taken different approaches into transitioning into this field. For me, there were two goals, really. Firstly, was to acquire practical machine learning skills as quickly and as cheaply as possible. So, for me, I didn't really have the time and the money to go back to uni and do my master's in artificial intelligence or a PhD or anything like that. I needed to acquire practical skills in a simple way, in my own time, effectively, evenings, weekends, and be able to put that into action as quickly as possible. And then that feeds into the next goal, was to only acquire theoretical machine learning knowledge where necessary and relevant. So it's kind of a backwards approach. So when I went to school, you learn all the theory first, and then you put it into practice. And then in the end, you only end up putting like 10% of your theory into practice, or at least in my life experience. Whereas I wanted to take the other approach, where you learn how to do things in practice, and then if there's specific niches and specific details I need to understand in more fidelity, then I can go into that if needed. So I felt that would be a more efficient and more expedient approach. So in terms of what have I learned so far, I've kind of stuck to the fundamentals, really. So the machine learning workflow, things like data preparation, producing training and test sets, cross-validation, feature engineering, feature selection, testing out various different models, hyperparameter tuning, things like that, just to understand how does one go about a data science and machine learning project in a credible way, really. And in terms of the algorithms, it's mainly been the simple stuff is almost the best stuff, at least in the experiences that I've had with machine learning. Linear regression, decision trees, random forests. Most recently, it's been distributed computing. So the projects I've been working on, at NATS, we've been transitioning from a business intelligence on-premise solution over to a cloud-based solution. So we're transitioning over from SQL databases over to Azure data lakes, Databricks, using PySpark. So this year I've been using PySpark in anger, and to a very detailed extent. So I've been able to upskill quite significantly through my day job on more on data engineering than data science. But it's been really interesting. It's really opened my eyes, and the power and the functionality of Databricks and then Spark generally. It's every day I'm learning something new whenever I use that technology, and it's been really rewarding. It's been really interesting. So how did I go about learning over the last 4 or 5 years or so? There's been different resources I've used, and this list is definitely not exhaustive. There's definitely other options, but a data camp I've used extensively over the last 5 years. That's how I learnt R, the carrot package in R, which is kind of their equivalent to scikit-learn in Python, which are both kind of machine learning toolkits, effectively. It has all the various algorithms in there, and then PySpark as well. I learned through DataCamp, and that's been really useful. So it's an annual. It used to be just a monthly subscription that you could cancel anytime, but now it's annual subscriptions. I think it works out at about £20 a month ish. So it's relatively affordable, and you get access to more technologies than this. So you get R, Python, SQL. I think there's some other languages, PySpark as well. So yeah, there's lots of options there in terms of machine learning and just data science technologies. I did do a little bit of theory. So I did a kind of online telecourse called Learning from Data, led by Professor Yasser Abu Mustafa, which was interesting, but if I'm being honest, I didn't actually. It was very, very detailed, quite kind of abstract, and I haven't used it in practice. So yeah, while it was interesting, it wasn't particularly practical. So I don't regret doing it, but I've spent probably 90% of my time over the last 5 years focusing on practical skills, and that's definitely helped me in terms of my day-to-day in machine learning work. Kaggle, I've used that. So that's a kind of online community platform where you can do things like participate in machine learning competitions, and some of them have cash prizes and quite significant cash prizes. Then there's a lot of basic activities that you can do that just for your own learning. So you don't necessarily need to compete with others, but equally, if you want to compare your skills against machine learning specialists around the world, then you can do that. It was very competition focused when I first started using it, but more recently it's become more of a community and more kind of educational platform. So it's definitely evolved. I think it was really useful for me taking what I'd learned in my kind of online data camp courses and putting it into practice. I'm a real advocate of whenever you do a piece of training, whatever it is, whether it's data science or whether it's something else entirely, to put it into practice as soon as possible. So I've got a link here to Boston Housing Dataset workbook that I created after I'd learned about the carrot package. I created this online workbook to basically put my skills into practice, and I basically explain my entire workflow and just have a kind of living document of how to implement these things. Something that I can refer to, or something I can show future employers potentially. And I've done something similar. I did a course this year on deep neural networks in Keras, and I did the same thing. I did it in Kaggle. I just produced a workbook and just worked with MNIST, hand-drawn digits data set, image recognition, and that was just an opportunity to put my skills into practice rather than just do a course and then just forget about it. So I'm a big proponent of that. So those are the main 3 platforms that I've used. There's lots of other ones available: Microsoft Learn, Udemy, Coursera, edX. If you want to go back to uni, you can always go back to uni as well. So there's lots of different options, and it's about finding the right platforms and the right methodology for you, really. So what's next for me? I'd like to continue to gain more practical experience in machine learning, and now that I'm in a full-time data science job, hopefully that will be forthcoming over the next 12 months or so. I'm also looking to kind of become more lateral in terms of my understanding of data science in the wider context of things like data architecture and data strategy, because I'm interested in the more strategic picture and how we use technology in the most effective way possible. So like algorithms and models are interesting to me to an extent, but equally I really like the idea of leveraging technology or any sort of tool set to the best of an organization's ability, really. So I'm trying to get more involved in data strategy and data architecture work at NATS, hopefully the next 12 to 18 months. So to wrap up and to close, don't be scared. I think it's easy, particularly if you don't have massive coding background, or it's been a while since you've done anything kind of deeply quantitative. It can feel quite intimidating when you look at all these different algorithms and all the buzzwords and stuff like that. But for me, I came into this without a PhD, without an MSc, so I could have easily been intimidated and said, okay, well, it's not for me. I'm not smart enough to do this. But at the end of the day, I was interested, and that was sufficient fuel for me to learn what I needed to learn, and then I just followed my nose, really. So learned R, and then I learned about machine learning workflow, and then I learned about feature selection and cross-validation and different algorithms. So I didn't just kind of went down the rabbit hole, really, and that was quite it was relatively straightforward, and it was interesting, and it was rewarding. I would say tailor your learning plan to your own preferences, capacity, and career stage. So as an example, if you're in a management role and you don't do much coding work, and you're not going to do much coding work, that doesn't make sense for you to spend lots and lots of time learning coding if that's not what you're going to do on a day-to-day basis. But if you can learn about machine learning life cycle, you can learn about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats from machine learning and artificial intelligence, and maybe just have a basic understanding of code so you can quality assure technical work, then that's probably sufficient for your purposes. Equally, if you love coding and that's your passion, then getting more into the technical side. So just tailor it to whatever makes sense for you, really. And then, as I said before, focus any technical training on techniques that you can use in a project, whether that's in work or whether that's as a Kaggle competition or some sort of side project that you can do. I think that's, it's all about gaining experience, and there's a difference between training and experience. So anything that you can do to gain a practical implementation of whatever you've learned is always the best way, and it's got to help you over the long run. Cool. So that's everything from me. I'm happy to open up the floor to any questions.
Andrew, that was absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing your journey today. We're now going to pass to Sarah, who's going to moderate the Q&A. So over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Andrew. I'll reiterate what Claire just said. That was a really interesting talk. I found it really helpful and insightful, and it was great that you've managed to break this myth that you need an MSc or a PhD to get into this. For someone who's just starting thinking about getting into moving into data science, are there any particular sort of websites which can help navigate where you what's available? Did you find anywhere that was really good to help you kind of just sort of get a better build at the picture of what's around to kind of because there obviously, like you said, there's an awful lot of different courses you can do out there. Is there any particular useful resources you could recommend?
Yeah, I think. So there's a website called machinelearningmastery.com, and it's led by a guy called Jason Brownlee. So he's kind of a foremost kind of a thought leader in the machine learning space, and he provides a lot of educational materials himself, and he even provides data science coaching. So if people want expert coaching from someone who's in the field, then those options are available, and there's various different people who offer those sorts of services. So if people really want, it's kind of like going to the gym and having a personal trainer, if that's something that helps motivate you, or if it gives you some more structure, then you can consider it. Obviously, it comes at a cost, but yeah, that could potentially help. I'm sure there'll be something there like how do I get into data science? There's probably an article somewhere along those lines, or towards data science. That's a good publication on medium.com, which is basically news articles relating to data science, and there's a lot of examples, and there's a lot of articles written by, because it's kind of, the articles are driven by the community, so you get a lot of, I think I've seen various articles written by people who've just started doing data science, and they say, oh, this is my first 6 months in data science, and they talk in detail about the kind of projects that they've done and their journey towards getting a job in the industry. So yeah, there's various, you can just go on Google probably and say, how do I get into data science? And I'm sure they'll, the first 3 results will be pretty informative. So yeah, there are various resources out there if people need it.
Brilliant, thank you. So are there any basic skill requirements that you need in order to have a career in data science? So for example, do you have to have an education in mathematics?
Sorry, just take a swig. I would say it's really interesting because I think where the industry is at the moment, seems to be still very focused on, if you want to be in data science, then if you look at the job adverts, for example, and I'm sure this would be a very interesting future talk. But if you look at the job adverts, it says minimum requirement MSc or minimum requirement PhD. So it's very much, if you want to be data science, you have to be kind of a Rolls-Royce kind of top of the range data scientist. Whereas I'd like to think over the next 5 years that the industry would democratize, and there'll be places for different people with different skill sets. So some people will be doing the very cutting edge AI, and then there'll be other people doing more straightforward tasks. But I would say the minimum, you need a quantitative mindset at the very least. I would say. I think if you don't like technology, if you don't like coding, or you don't like numbers, then I think it's very difficult. I can't imagine someone who doesn't have some sort of proclivity towards those sort of concepts lasting in this sort of industry for very long. But then again, I wouldn't expect them to probably be on attending a talk like this anyway, or be interested in this sort of work. So yeah, I would say as long as you're quantitative in some way, shape or form, then and you have a basic level of interest and basic willingness to learn, I think that's sufficient, really. I'm very much a proponent of people have the right attitude, and that's the right attitude will get you very far. It will get you a lot further than you think, I think, from my own personal experience. So I've done a lot of things over the years, just whether it's in career or from a personal perspective, that I didn't necessarily know a lot going into it, but then I was passionate and interested, and then I just figured it out as I went along, and I got pretty far just on that, really. So yeah, I don't know if that, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. So we had a couple of questions around. So you mentioned using an online workbook so that you could showcase your skills to employers. So have you shown your workbook to potential employers, or did you need to have done, say, a project or something in order to, in order to be able to get the job? Is it important to be able to demonstrate your skills in this way?
It's a good question. Yeah, the way I got my current data science job was through a reorg, and yeah, I was just kind of got almost internally headhunted with the various other, basically the most technical people in our department ended up in the data science team. So I was quite fortunate that I didn't have to go through an application process. Yeah, I haven't actually applied for like an external data science job because I'm pretty happy where I'm at the moment. But definitely what I've seen in terms of careers advice on data science is any sort of portfolio you can create is only a good thing, basically. So yeah, if you're kind of starting out and you're looking for your first job, and you're applying externally, for example, to organizations, then yeah, anything you can demonstrate of your capabilities is only a good thing. So I would say, yeah, I think it's a good way of just consolidating your learning, and then yeah, the byproduct of it is you can take it out into interviews, or it gives you things to talk about in an interview, rather than just, hey, I'm interested in data science. You can actually say, okay, well, these are the projects that I've done, and these are the techniques that I've used, and you can give them a more concrete presentation of your competency.
Okay. What sort of industries are interested in having data scientists in them?
Pretty much every industry right now, to be honest. E-commerce, technology, aviation, utilities, NHS, data science, NHSX. It's kind of leading the way on things like track and trace and things like that. So yeah, I would say pretty much every industry is looking to use data scientists, and if they're not, they're probably not going to last for very long. But yeah, I would say whatever domain you're interested in, there's probably if you're interested in, for example, healthcare, yeah, there are lots of opportunities for data science in healthcare, e-commerce, transport, anything really. Yeah, so brilliant. Yeah, there's definitely wide application.
Okay, and then the last question from me: what is it that you most enjoy about being a data scientist?
For me, it's you're constantly pushing the boundaries, particularly at our organisation, where I think we're fortunate in terms of our department, but B, being in data science within an analytics function, we're constantly at the cutting edge of everything that we're doing, A, in our organisation, and B, in our industry as well. I'm quite fortunate that the UK, NATS is kind of leading the way in terms of aviation and air traffic management. So what we do ends up having ripple effects across Europe as well. So yeah, our department has managed to deliver some award-winning projects, and so some of the machine learning stuff that we've done in recent months, in the last 12 months, has got exec backing and real support and enthusiasm around it. So yeah, for me, you're constantly at the cutting edge and at the bleeding edge of what's possible, and definitely the work I've done with Databricks over the last 12 months with one of my colleagues. We're constantly just on that frontier, and that is quite exciting. It's challenging. It definitely has its challenges because you can't turn to anyone for help. But everything you do is you're constantly gaining new ground, and you're constantly laying foundations for the next generation to do even better work. So that's what I enjoy about it most, about my data science role in my particular context and my organisation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sarah. There were some great questions there. And mindful of the time, we will move straight over to our second speaker, Ella. So we're over to you, Ella.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can hear and see me okay. I start with a bit of an apology. I'm actually on holiday this week and down in Devon, on the Devon coast, North Devon coast. And the place where we are staying, it turns out when we turned up on Monday, they told us that they are upgrading their Wi-Fi network. And so there is no Wi-Fi in the villa where we're staying. So I've had to come to a local cafe. So hopefully it's not too noisy. Nice to meet you all. So as I said, I'm Ella Cockerell. My pronouns are she and her. My day job is I'm a business development lead effectively in Microsoft's IoT EMEA team. And then outside of that, I also vice chair the Women at Microsoft board, which means I have responsibility for a whole host of programs that we run in Microsoft UK for both the women internally at Microsoft and women outside in the community that we are trying to encourage to pursue opportunities in technology. In terms of what I'll cover tonight, a very quick bit on who I am, which is not hugely interesting. I'm not a data scientist, so I can't give you any of the level of detail that Andrew's done so fantastically well tonight. But I will talk to you a little bit about some programs that we've run and some resources that are available. So I'll talk broadly about the skills gap, what we've done for data science boot camps, which are aimed at women returners, what we're doing in terms of online learning in a COVID world, and what self-paced learning is available, as well as some educator resources for any educators that we've got on the call. And then I can go over to Q&A as well. So I'll start just with me. As I said, I'm not a data scientist. My career has been, I guess, less technical than that. So I have always worked in sales and business development roles for a number of different organisations over the years. In terms of the largest sort of corporate organisations, that would be Orange, the company that we now know as EE, BlackBerry, and Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for just over 6 years now. And in terms of my interest here, it all very much comes through the work that I do for women at Microsoft, and all to do with how I had identified that there's a real gap for women in data science. So talking about the skills gap generally, you can see this research from McKinsey is really showing us over the last few years how the demand for the types of skills we have is shifting, right? So less physical, less manual, less of the kind of what we would call basic cognitive skills, and shifting much more to social and emotional skills, such as empathy, for example, would be a good example there, and a huge shift in technological skills. And I had identified probably, I would say this was about 2 or 3 years ago now, that we had both a huge shortage in terms of women working in technology and a general shortage in terms of data science. And as Andrew so rightly said, there's so many organisations across such a breadth of different industries that are looking for data scientists at the moment because of the explosion of big data. And the reality is we just don't have enough. So I was looking at those two issues combined and thinking, how can we really meet that demand? What can we do to bring the two of those together? And also thinking about some of the greater problems from an inclusivity perspective of us not having enough women working in data generally. And I will recommend a book to you all. I'll put a link to the book in the chat when I stop presenting, a book called Invisible Women. If you haven't read it, I really heartily recommend it. And it's all about the gender data gap and the fact that so much of the world and the environment, both from the way cities are designed, the way offices are set up, the way restaurants work, really everything in the world around us has been very much built on the data gathered about the way that men live their life and not so much about women. And it sort of starts with talking about that and the sort of historical data gathering that, of course, would have been quite manual. And it talks about how now that's having an effect as we build more technology-based solutions. As we use more algorithms, we are building bias into those algorithms because they're predominantly built by men. So having a better balance across all areas of technology is good. But of course, when it comes to the decisions that we make about the new products we want to build, it's absolutely fundamental that where that journey starts in terms of the data science piece, we've got a good balance of both genders to make sure that we build products that are inclusive for all. So that was where the interest sort of came from. And talking generally about double clicking on that and looking at cloud skills, this is the search that I did actually last week. It says this week, but it was last week before I came away, on jobs related to cloud computing. This is just on LinkedIn. It's 18,258 results. So it's a huge booming market all up. And if you have a specialism like data science, it's in high demand at the moment. And in terms of the way that Microsoft look to address that, we bring a huge amount of curriculum to the table. We use Microsoft Learn as our primary platform to surface all of that. That is all provided free. All of the content, all of the courses, all of the learning parts are free. And then you pay for your certifications and examinations. So we try and nurture this independent learning and growth mindset that people are, self-motivated and doing things that they want to do. And then we take a focus on which students continue to use that after university to support their career pathway. And then in terms of specifically what we did with data science bootcamps then, so this is going back probably 2 years ago now that we first started launching the idea, where we wanted to specifically go to women returners and what we called women transferers. So returners being women that have taken a break to have children or care for a relative or for whatever reason taken a career break. And really the world has changed so much in the last few years, and we were hearing they were struggling to come back into the workforce. And then there's women transferers, and this is really women who are finding themselves disillusioned in current roles that they're in, where they might have some transferable skills because they already understand how to understand data. So, nursing would be a great example of that. We see women leaving nursing in droves, leaving teaching in droves. So how do we harness those skills? So what we did was we launched on International Women's Day 2009, which was the 8th of March. We launched this big campaign and we said we're going to offer these data science boot camps, which will be a one-day event hosted at a number of different venues across the UK. We wanted to be inclusive to all areas. So we worked together with 8 of our commercial partners to host that. And between them, they hosted 9 different boot camps. And we put out a social media campaign, which was highly successful. Within 2 weeks, we had 660 women apply. We only had 100 spaces. So we were only able to accept 120 women onto the course. And we fully expected that we get a high dropout for that. So we were expecting probably 70 or 80. We had 20 volunteers from Microsoft who said, hey, I will go and help facilitate this. We needed that. We needed people that would help these women when they got stuck, because most of them were coming from no data background at all. So in order to facilitate that, we put all of the volunteers from Microsoft, which was a mix of men and women, we put all of them through the data science curriculum. So many of them learned plenty of new skills as well so that they could support this. And then on the day, we were pretty staggered. 96 women turned up. We thought we'd have a much higher dropout rate. So we were really impressed with that. And within the week, 52 of those women had achieved their first certificate, their first qualification in data science. We also actually charged a nominal fee for attendance. So we did ask the women to spend, I think they could donate if they wanted to, £10 for turning up on the day. And we gave that money to the SmartWorks charity. So I think about half the women said yes, they would make a donation, and then Microsoft matched that pound for pound, which ended up being a £900 donation to SmartWorks. SmartWorks, if you don't know them, is an organisation that has got I guess, offices and the kind of shops, I suppose, around the UK. And what they do is a number of things, but they were rooted in taking donations from working women of suits, kind of smart attire, things that would be needed for job interviews, because they had identified there were lots of women who were really wanted to be able to go and get jobs, but didn't have the current circumstances or income to be able to afford the clothes. So that's how they started. You know, you can go in and you can say, I'm going for a job interview, I don't have anything to wear, and you can take one of the donated clothes, handbags, shoes, what have you. That's how they started, and then from there they've sort of branched out and they're doing interview techniques and CV writing practices as well. So that was our first expression of doing the data science boot camps, and we actually won an award at the CRN, which is Computer Reseller News, annual Women of the Channel Awards last year. So we won the Best Community Outreach Project, which was really fantastic. And so we had planned to run this again. I think our working date was the 21st of May this year. And obviously that all had to be postponed and stopped as a result of COVID. So what we're looking to do now is see how we can support the women who had signed up to do this course online. We initially, I guess naively, thought, oh, maybe we'll do it in the autumn. So we just pushed the date back to October. That's obviously not going to happen. But we had 500 women sign up this year. So we think it's built, this Data Science Bootcamp for Returnists is building a little bit of a brand. So we're looking to see how we serve them with some of our online content. And of course, we can just send them to the online content self-serve. The challenge there is that we're trying to give these women the opportunity to get into a focus space for a day and to have the support from volunteers that can help them. So we're just looking at ways to facilitate that through the autumn online. In terms of what's offered by Microsoft, it's really a whole host of information across a number of different platforms, but really breaks down into three areas. Productivity skills, so that would be things like, you know, how to use Office 365 tools, how to use PowerPoint, how to use Excel and Outlook, etc. Technical skills, which we'll talk about a little bit more, and then employability skills. So we have a huge amount of courses on LinkedIn around things like, you know, interview techniques, how to write a great CV. Andrew shared a fantastic tip earlier around building a portfolio, and I think, you know, whether that's for data science or frankly any type of job discipline that you're interested in, I think that's such a hugely important tip to take away with you. If you can prepare some sort of portfolio to show the level of interest, commitment, time, what you've produced, the quality of your work, it makes a huge difference and really makes you stand out from the crowd. So as I said, we've got a huge amount of different ways of learning. I'm not going to go into all of these today, but this kind of just gives you an overview of everything that we've got. In terms of kind of key resources for educators, we're really looking at the Microsoft Imagine Academy, and that's where there's a load of tools and resources to help you build curriculum for your students. And then I'll talk today really more around the self-directed and self-paced learning, which is Microsoft Learn and LinkedIn Learning. So in terms of Microsoft Learn, here's the website. If you go here, you'll find this kind of homepage that you see on the bottom right-hand corner here. And there are a number of different learning paths on there that you can go into and say, you know, I want to learn specifically. There's a data science learning path, there's an IoT learning path, there's an Azure Fundamentals learning path. So lots of different options in there. And then we have specifically things targeted at students as well. So how to build tech skills for the future. So lots of things that support existing university courses, or ways to become a student ambassador for Microsoft. And if you are an educator as well, some programs there that can help you. This is just what the website looks like, and I've highlighted here that Azure Fundamentals path. And then this is just shy of 10 hours of content on Azure Fundamentals. I would say if you're looking to do the data science course, I would try and do Azure Fundamentals first, because I think that basic foundation is really important. And if you're not from any kind of computing or data background, this will give you some of the skills that will enable you to kind of leapfrog on to the data science bit. So that is 9 hours and 59 minutes long, so just shy of 10 hours. But that takes you through some of the steps there that you can do. And then, as I said, at the end, you can go for a certification in terms of completing an exam. And that certification, I want to say it's about £86. So something around the kind of somewhere between £75 and £90, which are currently offered online as well. There's a huge amount of different courses on there, as I said, different learning paths that you might want to look at, things like Introduction to Python, or a machine learning crash course will be particularly relevant if you're interested in data science. And then this is what the data scientist path looks like. So if you've already done the Azure Fundamentals, then you would then build on that to go through the Azure Data Science Associate course. And then the final thing that I guess I wanted to mention around these courses is this announcement that came out in June. I don't know if you saw it, but it was around how Microsoft are offering kind of free digital skills training. So as I said, all of the content on Microsoft Learn is free in terms of the courses that you do, but we have also decided to offer the certifications for free for people who are job seeking. So you go online and you self-attest to the fact that you are currently job seeking, and then you get a voucher to be able to do the exam for free. And that's for all of the courses that you see on the right-hand side of this slide. Excuse me. And then in addition to that, we've also taken a load of LinkedIn content for kind of key job roles that used to be chargeable and made that free as well. So do check that out. And then just quickly in terms of educator materials, as I said, Microsoft Imagine Academy is where we would direct any educators to. That really breaks down into kind of 4 areas. So computer science, very coding based, IT infrastructure and cloud. So if you're interested in getting into things like IT admin and being IT support, that's where you find a lot of those skills. Data science to help inspire young kids and young adults from an early age. And then also the productivity tools around how to actually use some of the Microsoft systems, although it seems to me that most of the kids I know can absolutely wipe the floor with me in terms of using things like Excel and PowerPoint, etc. But all of that exists as well. And this is what some of those paths look like and how they break down. So if you look at productivity, for example, you start with looking at just OneNote and then Word and PowerPoint, Excel, and you build up as you go. And it tells you here kind of how many hours of content that you've got on each of those steps. And then the final thing that I will draw your attention to is the AI Business School. So this is very much focused on non-technical audiences, kind of business leadership, middle management type roles, really leadership-based series. So you can go on there and there's all sorts of courses and things that you can look at there. Things like define an AI strategy, identifying some of your guiding principles for AI. That's very, very important from an ethical AI perspective. That's another one that might be worth checking out. I think that's it from me. So I think I'm on to Q&A.
Wow, thank you, Ella. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing so much incredible information on these great resources that are available. I'm just letting all the attendees know that these slides will be available, so they will be able to tap into that information after this event. So I'll just pass over to Sarah, who's going to manage the Q&A.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Ella. This is something that I really enjoyed that talk. This is something that's very close to my heart. You know, I've got a number of friends who gave up work when they had children, and now they're looking to get back into the workplace. And you know, these type of courses really are invaluable. And I just love the fact that it's a cohort experience, these boot camps, because that sort of group support is just so important.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I was going to ask was how do people apply to be on the boot camp? So, you know, where do you advertise these if someone to look for those?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, there isn't anything being advertised live because we haven't quite worked out how we're going to do this virtually. So what we're doing is we've just put a survey out to the 500 women who had applied, and we're asking them what is their preference, but they rather delay till maybe next summertime. and do it face to face, or would they rather do it online? And then depending on what they say, we'll take their guidance. If we do look to do it online, then we will probably put it out and promote it again. And then you'll see it promoted from at Microsoft UK. So if you follow at Microsoft UK on Twitter and LinkedIn, you'll see it promoted there. So that's what I would say there. Generally, the way we've done it has all been over social media. We're not actually allowed to have people email us and ask to be on a wait list because of GDPR. We can't just hold those details indefinitely, unfortunately. So it is a case of just having a look out on the social media channels. Okay. But also what we will do, I would say, is as soon as we know what we're doing, we will share those details with you at the TVAI Hub, and perhaps you can then put those out to people.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. Thank you. That'd be great. Obviously, you're not quite sure what's going to happen now, but are you planning to have these boot camps in other regions?
It's always been across the whole of the UK.
Okay.
So yeah, no, so I think last year we had 9 different regions. This year, what we had signed up, we had 18 different partners. There were, I think, 4 or 5 in London, and then I think we had just 1 in Reading, but then we had Newcastle, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Belfast, Birmingham, Manchester, Nottingham, Exeter. So yeah, we're at Cambridge, so we try and get them as broad as possible for people. Okay. So yes, and we will always keep to that principle.
Sorry, there was a follow-up that they didn't actually mean inside the UK; they meant outside of the UK.
So we have talked about whether we can do this across Europe. There is potentially some interest in doing that. We were just starting to get some momentum on that when COVID hit. So it will be. It's a tricky one because although it's 500 women, it's not one big event for 500 women, right? It's lots of events of sort of some of them have 10 women, some have 20 women. So it really depends as we get into next year and we start to hopefully see some cases start to fall again. If we have guidance from each of the local governments in each of the countries to say, yes, you can have up to 10 people, 20 people, 30 people in a room, then we would definitely look to run them in different regions, but it very much will depend on government guidance at the moment. The alternative is that we do it online, but do it obviously in those local languages, which is something that we are also pursuing. So if you can let me know the regions you're particularly interested in, that would be helpful for me, for my research, as we build that out.
Thanks. Do you need any particular sort of standard qualification before you can join a boot camp?
No.
Okay, that's good to know.
No, open to everyone.
That's great. Is there a limit to the number of Microsoft certificates that job seekers can complete for free?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't think there is. I'm not aware that there is. I will double check that though. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure there isn't, but let me double check.
Okay. I was also wondering what sort of teaching level the sort of fundamental certificate is at. Is that so people can get an idea of the how intense it is? You know, is it NVQ, GCSE, degree? What sort of level is those like fundamental certification?
I would say, well, I've just done it earlier this year. I would say it's probably kind of A level-ish. That sort of level, I would think.
And have you done any, so going back to boot camps again, have you tracked the career trajectories of the women who've attended the boot camps? Do you know how many of them have actually gone on to get a job in data science?
Yeah, we've had a bit of a challenge there, again, because of the privacy rules we have about contacting the women too often. So we're sort of quite restricted there. We do know that of a handful that have ended up doing some sort of data analysis type role. And we do have one lady who ended up going back to her company that she was working for and telling them what she'd done. And actually, instead of leaving, they ended up putting her on a data science degree apprenticeship. So she's ended up taking a completely different path and being able to stay where she wanted to be, which is great. But of those 52 women that got that certificate, no, I can't, sadly. It's a question we get asked a lot, and I wish I could, but I can't give you a firm, 20 ended up doing a job in data. But equally, I must be clear to say that first certificate they get, that doesn't make you a qualified data scientist, right? You've still got a long way to go. But yeah, we believe that at least a handful have ended up doing data science. Sorry to be vague.
No, that's absolutely fine. That makes sense. And I suppose, I mean, I had a question about whether, yeah, I was also wondering about how they sort of follow up as a group afterwards, because I said that cohort is so important. But
yeah.
I guess you.
It was interesting. So we very much left it to the partners that were hosting them to sort out how they would keep in touch. Some partners set up, like a LinkedIn community group, which were well used. Some didn't do anything. We had one group where the women just independently themselves just set up a WhatsApp group and just started, even on the day, just messaging each other. And the volunteers from Microsoft were also invited to the WhatsApp group, and that chat in that WhatsApp group went on for a few months afterwards as people were doing different things and picking up different courses. So that was a real learning for us from that first experience, that we would really encourage that kind of community angle moving forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ella. I've got one more question, and that's probably for both you and Andrew possibly as well. Someone was asking what exactly the difference is between data science and data analyst.
I would say Andrew's best to answer that question, having been both.
Yeah, it's a really good question. For me, if I just sum it up in a very simplistic sense, data analysis is backward looking and data science is forward looking. So with data analysis, you're typically doing, okay, here's a load of data about something that happened. Give me some insights into what happened. Whereas data science is, here's a load of historic data. What could happen in the future based on what we know about the past?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really nice explanation of that. Thanks. So I'm going to hand back over to you now, Claire.
Thank you, Sarah. So before we close, I would just like to ask the speakers for a final closing remark. So first to you, Andrew.
My closing remark would be, if you're motivated to learn, then go ahead. I think, yeah, just give yourself the permission. If it's, if data science is something that you're interested in, yeah, it doesn't necessarily matter if you have a maths degree or a master's or a PhD. If it's something that you have a passion for and you're willing to put in the time, then go ahead and just see where it takes you. Basically, that's the approach that I took.
Thank you, Andrew. That's great advice. And to you, Ella?
And for me, I would absolutely echo that as well. But I also wanted to share one other thing with you, because, as I said, we haven't yet sorted out our how we're going to do our kind of online data science bootcamp, and we will keep you posted. But in the meantime, one of the partners we have worked with in the past are doing a kind of hackathon type experience. So let me just get rid of this so that you can see. But they have registrations open at the moment, and I think it's running from the 13th to 27th of October. So if you go to this link down here, which I've also put in the chat, that's something that you can sign up to straight away if you're interested to get involved.
Oh, thank you, Ella. That's brilliant. So I would like to finish with a few thank yous. I would like to say firstly to the speakers for giving up their time to share such valuable information with us, Sarah for her masterful management of the Q&A, and finally for all of you for joining us this evening. This is a hub for the community, and we really appreciate your feedback from events such as this. You will receive a follow-up email to this evening with a link to feedback, and we would really be grateful if you would take 2 minutes to complete it. So I'm just going to say thank you for joining us and good night.